Hey, welcome back one more time to PennLive.com. I'm Dustin Hawkins with Greg Pickle, our Penn State football recruiting reporter and a wonderful human being. We're going to talk about defensive line recruiting. It is kind of the topic du jour. We've had 4 defensive linemen commit within the span of a week. Michael Dwumfer, Christian Cologne, Daniel Joseph today, Tuesday, and who am I missing? Ellison Jordan on Friday. So 4 in rapid succession. Is there any coincidence that the snowball started building and it built quick?
Yeah, I think it's quite simply Penn State staff does a very good job, and there's staffs around the country that are there's usually one end or the other. They're really good at this or they're really terrible, and that's letting recruits know where things stand. So when you look at Penn State's defensive line recruiting and recruiting picture in general, they knew 4 or 5, maybe 6 if it was a top flight guy was going to be the number for them at defensive line. Well, all of a sudden, they get 2, then they get 3. Shane Simmons committed almost a year ago, so they got to keep him in mind. And suddenly, there might be 6 kids left for 4 spots. And Penn State does a very good job of letting kids know where they stand and just, it's not pressuring them. I know a lot of people will take it as pressuring them. It's being realistic, and there's not Penn State's as good at this. A lot of staffs that are good at this, letting kids know that hey, we're going to fill up at some point, and when we fill up, we fill up. And for the recent run, I think you've seen the kids that said, okay, if you're going to fill up, you're going to fill up with me, and that's why this run has sort of went why it is, and it's also one of the reasons you see a commitment during the dead period, which doesn't happen often.
Well, so there's 3 defensive tackles, there's 2 defensive ends. I would call Daniel Joseph a guy who could potentially, he's got a big frame.
He's a Ryan Buchholz type guy.
Yeah, I think he's going to give the staff options, which is a trend. And I think with the tackles, you have complementary pieces. You got the big guy, Christian Cologne, 6'3", 310 pounds, give or take. Ellison Jordan, smaller, lighter, 6 foot, 270 pounds. And then Dwumfer is about somewhere he's a little short, 6'1", 285. So you have a mix and match in there. And the thing that's interesting about this run is that there are still some pretty prime targets out there for the taking. And it's like, I think the big question is, what do they do with that now? Are those kids going to be scared off? Is Penn State going to shut it down? Or some other strategy in between?
Yeah, I think this is the part of the recruiting process where you sort of see the only guys that have room, especially at the defensive line position, are the top guys. The Karamo Diabate, he's a 4-star out of Philly. The Rashawn Gary, he's a 5-star out of New Jersey. There's a couple JUCO guys. Terrell Chavez, who's going to visit. He told Scout and confirmed to us he'll be here July 18th, or Penn State July 18th. So this is, I think, the part where you see the boat get really small, and there's a select group left. You have guys like Rashad Wheeler, who Penn State was really tight and close with at Pittsburgh Central Catholic. You have to wonder if there's still room left for him. But there's a couple of guys that sure there's room for it. You don't turn down Rashawn Gary.
You make room for Rashawn Gary. You make room, I think, for Diabate. You make room for Olawale Batiku, LeVar Arrington, who's mentoring him in California. If you get a high caliber prospect, you don't say no to him regardless.
No question. I mean, I think when you look at those guys, you couldn't hold spots for them in your initial grouping, hoping they pick you because they have so many options. Gary has over 30 schools after him. Batiku has 30 schools. He's a West Coast kid, which makes it even harder pull for Penn State. So they couldn't necessarily sit around and wait. I know Diabate hasn't visited much, and there's good reason for that. He has some family, travel issues and whatnot. But again, you can't wait for those guys, but you sure better make room for them if they want to pick your school.
The boat is full as it is, 5 defensive linemen, but it might not quite be full yet, depending on how the recruitment of guys like Diabate, the high-end kids that Penn State is still in on. So stay tuned. They might not be done yet, and might not even happen that far up. That's Greg Pickle. I'm Dustin Hawkins-Smith, covering Penn State football recruiting for PennLive.